Starting recording. Umineko. Pizza. Mia's cooking some pizza for herself. We've started later than usual, but welcome to the next episode of Umineko. I will say right now, Georgia for Coolidge is not coming out today unless she surprises us like she did yesterday. Solely because that made my voice heave, and if we want to go for 2 hours, then no Georgia for Coolidge.
Who knows? What if George dies like Rudolph did and you don't have to talk as him anymore?
Oh, we have to. What was the next one? Was the couple, wasn't it? A couple gets torn apart.
So the two who are close.
So my thought process was that was Hideyoshi and Eva because they're the only like couple left.
And they just left the room.
Yeah, and they just left the room. So let's see how that plays out and see if my prediction was correct. The uncomfortable atmosphere continued even after those two left. It was thick with the idea that simply thinking about the culprit's identity would be the same as deciding whom is a suspect. It had begun to feel like the discussion of the case itself was taboo. So no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, I realized I'm not wearing my glasses.
Brooklyn!
There they are. Sorry, I put my glasses in different places because I've got 2 pairs and they both bother me. Oh my gosh. I was so wrapped up about my headphone cable not working that forgot my glasses. Okay. So no one mentioned the case, at least out loud. However, those thoughts were what filled our minds. All that we couldn't say out aloud made our heads feel like they were going to explode. So, at least on the outside, the parlor had once again regained its calm mood. Everything was left unsettled. Oh, I almost went immediately into Georgia for Coolidge.
I mean, you were just talking about her, so...
Yeah. It feels like the rain's gotten a little lighter. Ewe? Still pouring down. Ewe. Even if it didn't stop, there's no boat on this island. But it'd be nice if the boat came quickly tomorrow. I've had enough of this Western mansion vacation. Mom, when will the boat come tomorrow? Normally, the boats to take them back would arrive at 3 today. They probably sent a phone call to say that they would come after the typhoon passed, but unfortunately, the phones aren't working. But there aren't children over there. They were told to both drop off and collect our guests. So they will most likely arrive first thing tomorrow morning. Probably about 9, I believe. It was completely black outside. When I looked at the clock, I realized that it was just past 7. I was starting to get hungry. They really just breezed past the, breezed past the clock.
Back!
In the kitchen, Kumasawa was cooking enthusiastically.
What if she's making pizza as well?
I think, well, Kumasawa-san, they literally I think it was the last episode, they said that Kumasawa was cooking Western foods in a Japanese way, so I think she only knows how to cook in Japanese style. So, unfortunately, probably not pizza. She had laid out a variety of dishes, and while they didn't match the level of Goda's artful cooking, they were still quite gorgeous. It was an act of kindness from Kumasawa, who was trying to enliven everyone's low spirits with food. Kumasawa wasn't nearly as talented as a professional cook like Goda, but she was far from unskilled. On the contrary, she had been brought up in a fishing village. The simple food she created was something highly praised. Sorry, I'm just remembering something from the epitaph and how it mentioned the village growing up. I wonder if the locations are tied to Kumasawa and all that sort of stuff. Kanon arranged the food Kumasawa had finished creating on plates under her direction. Kanon also helped in the kitchen sometimes, but since he was rarely placed in that role, he was slightly awkward, even though he tried his best. Self-conscious about the fact that he couldn't cleverly arrange the food, Kanon's expression darkened slightly, but Kumasawa smiled as though everything was fine.
Ho ho ho! It reads beautifully! Kano-kun, aren't you skilled?
I'm choking on tea.
Brooklyn!
Coffee never does this to me.
Kano-kun, are you okay?
If it had been Shannon-san, it would look even more beautiful. Kanon stopped arranging the food a bit and hung his head. Shannon was the one who always assisted Kumasawa in her cooking. Tonight, Kanon was doing it instead. And, as he remembered Shannon's face and her brutal end, he grimaced. Forget that now. Genji spoke kindly to Kanon as he advanced a pawn. Nanjo had escaped to the parlour once the mood had grown sour, and Genji had become his opponent in a game of chess upon Nanjo's request. Yes, I will forget for now. Indeed, that's probably for the best. Genji purposely refrained from facing Kanon as he spoke. He did so because he understood that it might make things tougher on Kanon if he noticed that someone was looking in his eyes. Nanjo also understood that and held back any thoughtless words. I wonder where Kinzo-san has gone. I hope he's safe, but I do not know. However, I believe everything has proceeded as the masters hoped and arranged for. To distrust that would exceed my role as furniture in service to the master. Aren't you scared, Genji-san? I'm frightened that something bad will occur again tonight. I have nothing to be afraid of. I serve the Ishimiya family, and that is all. Nanjo sighed through his nose and made a carefully considered move. Nanjo was very slightly dubious. Could Genji possibly be thinking that he'd be left out of this? Did I even write Genji down yesterday on my predictions? I don't think I did. I think I wrote him down once.
Brooklyn!
He couldn't even imagine what was happening inside the mansion, but he definitely couldn't deny the possibility that Kinzo had devised something. If you liken this island to chess, I fucking hate likening this island to chess. Then Battler's gonna go and spin the chessboard around. Kinzo had opened the game. As a result, 6 pieces had been defeated. Could it be that Genji was calm because he believed he alone was on the outside of the chessboard and therefore safe? Nanjo thought about it. Isn't everyone just a piece of this chessboard lined up equally without any exceptions? Wasn't even Genji, who had gained more of Kinzo's trust than anyone. No. Who was confident that his position as Kinzo's only close friend, just another one of the pieces laid out on the chessboard? Genji-san. I am truly frightened about tonight. I hope with all my heart that we will be safe when tomorrow morning comes. Rain. The guest room Eva and Hideyoshi moved into had originally been built to house guests before the guest house construction. So, until a few years ago, they had stayed in these rooms every family conference and were very familiar with them. This room was just like a room at a hotel with a bedroom and a bathroom. So even though they were still shut in, it was far more comfortable than the parlour. Guess it's so you can relax more when you're alone with your family. Maybe it'd be better if everyone else also shut themselves in the guest rooms and locked the doors. Natsuhine-san said that no one could ever leave the parlour if there was no weight around. I'm sure no one will be able to talk back. She's always been treated so coldly, so now that Nisan's dead, she's getting excited about finally having so much power. Seriously, how shameless can she be? Come on now, don't say that. Natsuhi-san's doing pretty well. No need to jump on her like that. And about that I said earlier, you went too far. Come on. Oh, come on. If I hadn't said it there wouldn't be another good time to say it.
Pizza!
Pizza! Oh my god, she's got herself pizza. Eva, sulking cutely and looking at the television, sat alongside Hideyoshi, who was lying on the bed. This is the last time we're seeing those two. Who's saying this? Oh god, are they gonna fuck?
Brooklyn!
Still, we haven't been alone like this for quite some time. You're right. Come to think of it, both you and I have gotten pretty old. Since George was born, everything's gone by in a blink of an eye. It really has. I wonder if we were too hasty in having a child. Ava's eyes looked like they were staring off into the distance. Actually, oh, that must have been Eva talking. Whoops. Yes, she had thought of it as a once-in-a-lifetime chance. Her older brother Kraus had been unable to father a child for quite some time. 6 years had passed since his marriage to Natsuhi without any signs of pregnancy, which didn't please Kinzo at all. Eva herself had thought that, since her name would be moved outside the Ashuramiya family register when she got married anyway, it didn't matter whether a successor to the headship was born or not. And then, one day, she had a heavenly revelation. Or maybe it was the whisperings of the devil that she had listened to in her greed. If she could give birth to a successor first, wouldn't she be able to remain in the Ashuramiya family register? If things went well, she might have a chance to inherit the Ashuramiya family herself. When she proposed this to Hideyoshi, he had approved of it instantly. This wasn't because Hideyoshi also had greedy thoughts. For Hideyoshi, who had no close relatives, it was a chance for him to feel once more the long-forgotten thing called family. So once they got married, he hadn't fussed over which last name they were to keep, and had quickly agreed to have his name entered into the Ashuramiya family register. It hadn't been easy to persuade Kinzo, but his daughter Eva knew Kinzo's personality well. So, by choosing a time when Kinzo was most dissatisfied with Natsuhi, she was magnificently able to make him accept Hideyoshi as an adopted son-in-law. Looking at Hideyoshi, who had achieved success after starting from nothing, Kinzo might have seen a little bit of himself. He quickly grew to like Hideyoshi and approved his transfer into the Ashuramiya register. George, who would eventually become successor to the Ashuramiya family. They had raised him strictly with that purpose in mind. He had been worth their while and had grown into a fabulous young man who wouldn't disappoint no matter where he went. That was why he had not been able to fall in love with a servant like Shannon. So when she'd learned that Shannon was dead and the engagement was now invalid, though part of her still had been shocked by the gruesome crime, part of her had also been relieved that her dear George wouldn't be stolen by some servant girl. I hated Kraus Nissan since long ago. He was so full of himself, always swaggering around, so proud that he would one day become the head. So I wanted to get back at him. Was that just a childish emotion? But in the end, that emotion guided my entire life. If that had been all, then it would have been fine. But because of that emotion, I got you and George involved. I used you. Ava, don't blame yourself for that. Hideyoshi got up and held Ava's shoulders. She could feel a warm understanding from him. Well, I reached the halfway point in my life a long time ago. But you know, I have absolutely no regrets about how I lived my life. Not one. I think, since I've been with you, Eva, I've been able to relish an enjoyable life that other men never will. After Hideyoshi's dying. After all, I lost my relatives in that war. You remind me what the Warmful family is. So, I'm grateful to the Ashuramiya family. And think of it as my only one. In this life, I've lived with you. Not a single thing's been wasted. It's been really fun up until today. Thank you, darling. 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 Sorry, I'm trying to do the posh mum thing.
Ava from Adelaide.
Ava from Adelaide. But no, that's Rosa. Rosa from Adelaide.
Oh yeah, maybe the whole family's from Adelaide.
Except for, you know, all of the
Rudolph.
children. Except for Rudolph, who's just from I don't know, fucking somewhere probably in the country.
Yeah.
And then for some reason all the kids are vaguely American. Ava hung her head, burying her face into Hideyoshi's chest. Probably no one in the parlor could even imagine that this side of Ava existed. I'm the one who should be thanking you. Until today, there hasn't been a single day I've regretted being with you. Me too. I'm so glad to have you by my side. One of them is dying! George is already a fine adult. Even if I don't look out for him, he's a man who can do his job well on his own. I wonder, around New Year's, do you want to spend some time in the Maldives? Just us, no one else. No way. Aren't you always saying that you're so busy responding to New Year's cards that you don't sleep? I think the top one is is Hideyoshi, and the bottom one's Ava. None of this is New Year's. I won't read New Year's cards. I'll just stay quiet and check to see if I've won the New Year's lottery. It'd sure be nice if we won a colour TV this year. No way. I don't want to go wasting time checking the lottery while in the Maldives. Then none of that either. How's this sound? Just two of us, taking it easy, like when we were newlyweds, just before George was born. Yes. In that case, fine. I hear that the Maldives are wonderful. God, they're posh. An island with nothing on it, surrounded by beautiful coral reefs and cottages lined up over the water. I picked such a good accent for this man because the amount of times that it's like, what's it called? Congregated just leads to that accent. Congregated? Conjugated, whatever. Like when we were newlyweds, you say? Starting when? As soon as I finish up some business. I won't know till I ask a travel agency, but probably before New Year's Eve. No way. Right now? I want to go right now. Ava nagged at his lips, peevish yet flirtatious manner. The only sounds that filled up the room were distant voice of the announcer on the news, which Hideyoshi had left on, and the obnoxious pounding of rain against the window. One of those fuckers is dying. I am sincere in that idea. Why would you give me one of those scenes if one of them was not about to die? There was a knock at the door and Genji-san entered. Madame, the dinner has been prepared. Will you eat in here again? Yes. Avec Boitia? Is Dr. Nanjo in the kitchen? Yes. He has said he wishes to carefully deliberate over his next move. Do not worry. He is with the other servants. Genji sounds good enough at chess to be grandfather's opponent. I hear he's even better than Dr. Nanjo, right? That's right. As long as he's played against me. But he must have let me win. Maria, that sounds like it'll be time to eat soon. But look at you. You've been watching TV all day long and you still haven't gotten bored. It will. I'm always watching TV, so I'm fine. It will. Hey, Maria-chan sure is a TV kid.
No, she'd be an iPad kid.
Oh god, she would. Food's coming up, so we have to clear the table. Earlier we had torn several pages out of Maria's notebook, and there was now a mess everywhere where everyone had been drawing together. Jessica began clearing that up quickly. Still, everyone here really can draw. I never guessed. Genji, ask Eva and Hideyoshi-san whether they at least like to have dinner with us. Although, they will probably turn us down. Certainly. First father, no Eva-san. It's quite hard to gather everyone into the Ishimiya dinner table. Natsu felt her headache throbbing again and lightly held her temples. Horror? The distance from the kitchen to the parlor wasn't great, so Genji had gone and come back by himself, but the guest room was a little farther away. Natsu had warned him to avoid being alone wherever possible, and just now, Nanjo had also admonished him, saying it would be better if he held a little more concern for his safety. Kanon accompanied Genji, and the two of them went to visit Eva and Hideyoshi in the guest room. Genji knocked on the door. Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama. Dinner
I thought he
has
was
been
French
prepared.
for a second.
Eva-sama, Hideyoshi-sama. Dinner has been prepared. This isn't Natsuhi. This is Genji. He waited a short while for them to come out, but there was no response. Genji-sama, look at this. Kanon pointed under the door. A Western envelope had been inserted under it! Gnarly! When something was inserted in this way, it'd be interpreted as a message from someone outside to someone inside the room. Now, so since this had been a private note meant for Eva and Hideyoshi, it was not something that Kanon and Genji were supposed to take interest in. But this Western envelope was one of Kinzo's, and the same kind of one Maria had taken out last night and surprised everyone with. Oh, they're dead. There can be no mistake. It is one of Master's envelopes. Or could it be... Even though this was one of Kinzo's envelopes, the letter Maria read out loud the previous night hadn't come from Kinzo. Genji continued knocking a little harder and called out in a loud voice. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! It is Genji. Are you there? Please answer, Eva-sama. But there was no response from inside. Sometimes, when the servants went to call some guests for meals, the guests would be sleeping so deeply that they wouldn't wake up. In times like that, the servants would stick a letter in the door to show there was time to come out and to leave the guests be. But despite that, Genji beat even harder on the door and called out Eva's name. However, there was no answer. Kanon stuck his ear up to the door and held his breath, listening for any sounds coming from inside. I hear something that sounds like a television, but I don't sense anyone. The room might be empty. Genji took out a handkerchief, carefully not to touch it with his bare hands, and gently pulled out the envelope that had been stuck under the door. It has been sealed with deep red sealing wax. Without a doubt, the mark on that sealing wax had come from the Ishimiya family's head ring. Eva-sama! Eva-sama! Please, answer! Are you still in your room? But there was no answer. There was a chance those two were aimlessly walking around the mansion. This was the home Eva had grown up in. There was plenty of reason to think she had gone out on a casual stroll. Genji groped around in his pocket and pulled out a bundle of keys which contained the key that would open the guest room. Genji-sama? Kanon understood what this meant. They would sometimes unlock the doors. They can go and do things like make beds, only after they made sure the guests were out. To unlock the door for any other reason, and especially to do so when there's a chance a guest hadn't been given permission, might still be in there, was an action unbecoming of a servant. But Genji had decided. If the only problem had been his knock and hadn't received a reply, he wouldn't have gone this far. But the envelope under the door was doubtlessly one of Kinzo's. Or rather, one of the Western envelopes of the Ishimiya family head. After last night, the sender of this envelope could be someone other than Kinzo. If this letter had been sent by someone else... Eva-sama! My apologies. Allow me to enter your room. After giving that final notice, Genji stuck one of the keys from the bundle into the keyhole. And there was the sound of the door unlocking. After that, slowly the knob turning and slowly he started opening the door. They're dead! Ha! Light sleeping through the crack of the door. Were they in the room? Or had they forgotten to turn out the lights? Clank. It'd been the sounds of the door chain being pulled tight. The chains had been secured. The chain couldn't be secured from outside, so it proved that they were in the room. The sounds of the voices on the TV seeped out of the room. The lights, the chains, and the TV. All these things made it clear they were in the room, but there was no sign of them. Genji called out to Eva again through the crack of the door, but there was no answer. Genji-sama, what should we do? As part of their job as servants, they were able to unlock almost any door in the mansion. But they had no way to open a door with a chain. Bolt cutters! The only way to get to the chain was to cut it. They were certainly not permitted as part of the servants' usual work. A creepy chill rushed down their backs. Kanon held his breath again and tried to sense someone through the door, but even so, he was not able to sense anyone. I will call Madame and return. Kanon, cut the chain. Yes! Kanon hurried down the wall, hurried away to get a cutting tool. Genji called him to stop. Wait, Kanon. Return to the kitchen and take Kumasawa with you. You must not act alone. Yes, certainly. Kanon looked like he was wondering why he had to do something so troublesome in the middle of this urgent situation, but Genji had said it out of wariness. He didn't care about what happened to himself, but in the worst case scenario, he didn't want anything to happen to Kanon.
That was such a good pizza!
In the kitchen, Kumasawa was piling food onto the serving cart, and Nanjo was waiting for Genji, apparently to show him a move he'd finally thought of that might turn the tables on him. But Genji's appearance immediately told him that something was wrong. Oh, what is... I'm dropping the accents because I'm, like, getting hyped right now. Because I guessed right! What has happened, Genji-san? Dr. Nanjo, my apologies, but allow this match to be suspended for the time being. Kanon, take care of the chain. Kumasawa, stop setting up dinner for now and accompany Kanon. I will go over to Madame. If you would come with me, Dr. Nanjo. Has something happened? Genji took Nanjo, who still didn't know what was going on, and quickly left the kitchen. Kumasawa-san, my apologies, but please come with me.
Well, what happened, Kanon-san?
Kumasawa said almost the exact same thing as Nanjo, unable to take in the situation, and chased after Kanon, who had flown out into the hallway. Taking Kumasawa with him, Kanon went into his storage room and looked through the tools packed in the toolboxes and hanging over the walls, trying to find something that could be used to cut the chain.
What are you looking for? Let me help too!
We're cutting a door chain. Where was that large wire cutter?
A door chain? Well, why would you do something like that?
The chain to Eva-sama and Hideyoshi-sama's room. Even though they should be inside, they didn't answer when we called them. It took Kumasawa some time to figure out how cutting the chain and Eva and Hideyoshi not answering were connected, but she did realize this was an urgent situation. I go with that.
That one will probably do the trick!
Kanon took down a very large wire cutter that had been hanging on the wall. It was called a cutter, but maybe it'd be easier to understand if we said it was the shape of a large pair of pliers. Kanon remembered once being warned that this dangerous tool could easily cut through one of your fingers. Kanon took that and rushed upstairs. He already knew instinctively he should fight for every minute, every second to open it quickly. Or perhaps it was already.
Please wait, Kanon-san! Ah! Ah!
Hurry! Kumasawa eventually caught up with him, gasping for breath with both hands on her knees. Hands on her knees. Hands on your knees. When Kanon changed his grip on the wire cutters and looked through the door, he let out an ah, struck speechless. Oh! What's this? Eep! Oh, that's you.
Eep!
Kumasawa screamed weakly, her face pallid. There was no surprise. That was no surprise. Hold on. I'm just gonna screenshot this. Just, don't mind me. Because right there, on the door, just like the magic circle that had been drawn on the shutter of the Rose Garden storehouse, there was another eerie shape drawn with a blood-like paint. However, it would be odd to call this one a magic circle, because unlike most people would expect, it wasn't a circle with shapes drawn inside it, but a slightly more complicated geometrical shape. However, those strange characters filling the gaps weren't from the alphabet. They were the same ones as on the magic circle on the shutter. But the thing that had Kanon struck speechless wasn't how eerie the magic circle was. It was something that hadn't been there a short while ago. First, he had taken the trip back to the kitchen. After that, he'd gone to the storeroom to grab a tool and headed right back. Put those together, it couldn't have been more than 5 minutes. How could someone add something this creepy during that period of time? And as though it had just been drawn, almost like the door itself was bleeding, several unsettling vertical red lines slowly dripped down, getting longer and longer. This would be you. Kumasawa's knees gave way and she sank down on the spot. I'm noting down that they keep mentioning her fucking knees. Because they do mention in the epitaph knees. Kumasawa. Knees. She's an old woman. If Kumasawa hadn't done this first, then Kanon surely would have wanted to. Beatrice Summer.
Eek! It's the work of Beatrice Summer! How horrid! How horrid!
Kanon gulped when he readied the wire cutters and approached the door. He didn't want to get close to the disturbing magic circle, and he already didn't want to touch the steadily dripping substance that looked like blood. But if he didn't get close, he wouldn't be able to cut the chain. Fighting this cold feeling, he gulped again, and after gathering his courage, he went even closer, putting the wire cutter up against the chain. He then pressed with all of his strength, managing to cut through the chain far more easily than he had anticipated. The cut chain fell into two separate parts, which continued to clang as they swayed back and forth.
Kanon-san! There's an envelope by your feet! And isn't that the master's?
It looked like Kumasawa had also noticed the western envelope on the bottom of the door, and the sealing wax it had been sealed with the head's ring. Kanon hesitated for just a second over whether he should open the letter first or check inside the room. He eventually decided on fulfilling his original purpose. Kanon pulled a handkerchief out of his pocket. This was so he wouldn't leave fingerprints on the door. But if his worst fears were realised, the police would want to investigate this room too. He slowly pushed open the door. He was able to more clearly hear the sound of the television, which had been seeping out faintly this whole time. Ava-sama? Ava was lying face up on the bed with her shoes still on. Kumasawa, who'd fearfully entered after Kanon, who was hiding behind his back, screamed in a short eek again when she saw Ava like that. Ava's shoes had been the first part of her that Kanon had seen. So the oddness of wearing shoes in bed was the first thing to strike him. But when Ava's head shifted into his sightline, Kanon couldn't help but let out a short scream like Kumasawa. Right in the middle of Ava's forehead, something had been placed? Something was growing there? No. Right in the center of her forehead. Was it an old-fashioned knife or some sort of weapon like that sticking out? I was so right. I'm so happy.
I'm so happy Ava died. Oh my goodness.
I'm just happy I'm right.
I'm happy someone died.
Oh my god. Where's Hideyoshi? That's what I want to know. At the base of where this was stuck in, blood dripped down, staining the sheets of the other side bright red. Kumasawa's knees gave way once more as she sank down on the floor. Her mouth kept flapping open and closed, but she couldn't even scream. Ava was dead with some kind of weapon sticking out of her forehead. Both eyes were open, and the image of the person who killed her must have been blurred into them. But only a mouth capable of naming that person had been shut for all eternity. Even though her forehead was the last place they wanted to look, they couldn't tear their eyes from it. Right there, a weapon was struck into Ava's forehead, standing almost perfectly upright. And on the handle was a complicated design that you wouldn't expect to see on an ordinary weapon. That thing could be summed up with the word occult. It was a vulgar object with a design that might have been of some demon. What about Hideyoshi-sama? Hideyoshi-sama! Ava was on top of a bed, but the other bed was empty. Where was Hideyoshi? After taking a backwards glance at Kumasawa still on her knees, and stupefied, he checked the bathroom just in case. At the moment he opened the door, he was greeted by steam and the sound of a shower. The bathroom was the same familiar style of the hotel bathrooms. When taking a shower, a waterproof curtain was always kept the water from flying out. The waterproof curtain was half open, and lying tumbled down in the bathtub was Hideyoshi, completely naked with both eyes open, and pointing right at Kanon. Just like Ava, a weapon with a demon-like design was stuck into his forehead. I was right! Anyway. I did think it was only one of them, not both. But to be fair, I was right. Since it
I'm just sending over an image of how it's supposed to look. I couldn't find manga, but I found the anime.
Since his head had been under the shower's hot water this whole time, his face wasn't half covered and filthy with blood like Ava's had been. but the sight of him dead while still taking a shower was tragic enough. Just then, they heard Natsui's voice coming from the hall. She was probably coming up with Genji. Again with this graffiti? What about this letter? What does it say inside? I don't know. I haven't read it yet. We shouldn't touch it carelessly. The culprit's fingerprints might be left on it. We should hand it over to the police. They went out of their way to leave it here. I'm sure they wouldn't have left their fingerprints. As Natsui said that, she picked up the envelope. Before checking its contents, she entered the room herself, where she found Eva dead. Eva-san! Madame, Hideyoshi-sama is here too. This is truly atrocious. Kanon, turn off the shower. Don't let this be any more pitiful than it needs to be. Yes, ma'am. Kanon gripped his handkerchief and twisted the valve, turning off the shower. In the bathtub, a small jar of bloody soap had fallen with its cap off. It really looked like he'd been attacked while taking a shower. There was still a small splash of blood clinging to the white bathtub, and the combination of red and white made a horrible contrast. Dr. Nanjo, I understand. No signs of post-mortem livity. Rigor mortis hasn't begun either. It would seem that an hour has passed since they were killed. But even so, how a weapon of such short handle could do that to the skull? I cannot imagine. Nanjo checked their pulse and their pupils, making certain their deaths once more. As Kanon watched this business-like treatment, as he thought, couldn't you just tell at a glance they're dead without doing all that? Nanjo thought about removing the weapon, but then decided it would be better to preserve the scene and hand it over to police, so he left it alone. But a close inspection of the base of the shower that didn't have a blade. In fact, it was more conical than blade shaped. He noticed that rather than a knife, it was more like a short-handed spear. So something with a shape better suited for thrusting than slicing. Some people might have likened it to a thick ice pick rather than a short spear. At any rate, after looking to the scene, so Hideyoshi got a lobotomy, that's what I'm hearing. No further words were needed to describe the sort of terrible purpose with such eerie designed weapons were originally made for, nor was it necessary to explain how they were carried out to function. Nazi, hoping to escape the repulsive steam filling the bathroom as soon as she could. She covered her mouth with a handkerchief and dashed from the room. Just viewing their gruesome bodies for an instant had been enough to burn the image into her eyes. If she looked any longer, that image would surely remain in her vision for all eternity. The rising urge to vomit was the exact same feeling she'd had that morning at the gardening storehouse. For a while, Natsuki couldn't help but stand with her face back facing the guest room, fighting that sickness in her stomach. At any rate, we can't let the children... We can't let George-kun see this room. Seal this room with all haste.
Yes! We mustn't let them see! If George-san saw his parents in this brutal state!
But they could tell that those fiercely racing footsteps in the hallway belonged to George even before they came dashing into the room. George and the other children had been waiting in the parlour. However, when they saw Genji speak to Natsuhi, when they saw her turn pale and fly out of the parlour, they felt a sense of foreboding. When they saw a large group of people gathered around the guest room, they were sure of it. Father! Mother! What is this? Another magic circle? Oh, Maria's here now. Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi are safe, right? Hey, Kano-kun, what's this all about? Butler-sama. Kanon didn't have anything to say. George's screams after he ran into the room told him everything he needed to know. Ah! Who did this? I'll kill you! George-kun, 안녕하세요. Natsuki touches George's shoulder with her hand, but he violently shook her off. George fell over beside Ava, buried his face into the bed in front of his mother's face, wailing. He then pounded on the bed with his fist over and over again. Georgie-san, hang in there. Battler? Battler-sama. Battler had his back against the wall of the hallway. He was covering his eyes with his right hand, weeping without restraint. Horrible. That's horrible. He proposed to the girl he loved and lost her the next day. And on the same day, his mum and dad were killed. Isn't that too harsh? Of course it's sad whenever anyone dies, no matter who it is. But to Battler, those left alone by the deaths of others were far more worthy of pity. Everyone here now had lost someone close to them. George wasn't the only one to be pitied. However, George's pain was far greater than anyone else's. Battler, I know everyone dies sooner or later. If you're human, you'll eventually have to fight the sorrows of losing someone close to you. But still, shouldn't that day be far in the future for Anarchy? And shouldn't those deaths visit him one at a time? Horrible. It's too horrible. That bastard! Doesn't he even have a speck of human sympathy in him? Ah! Bold of you to assume it's a man. Ew. Battler, don't cry. Maria tried to comfort Battler in a mechanical sounding voice. Battler violently wiped his tears. Yeah, damn it, I won't cry anymore. Tears of regret, tears of sadness, I won't shed them again. It's all useless. The witches got me backed into a corner. I'm always on the defensive. And that's useless. It's all useless. I'll spin the oh, fuck me, man. Stop spinning the chessboard. That bastard probably thinks we're all running scared like shit tomorrow before we try anything. But guess what? I'll spin it around. Oh, Willie? That bastard can't escape this island until tomorrow either. We won't be hiding away, pissing ourselves. That bastard will. I will expose you. You'll see. By tomorrow. No, screw tomorrow. Tonight. Before tonight's over, I'll be gripping you by the collar.
Crack?
Crack? I don't think it would be a crack just yet.
I do love that music that was on before, but it's so hard to hear through Discord.
Yeah. I'm like sad. One of my favorite voices has died, and I think the next one to die will be Nazi.
Yeah?
Yeah. Well, hold on.
You think I'm going to die? My one and only voice?
Ow. One sec. Hold on. Where is my little... Ah! Oh, that's fine. Let me just get my little book. Okay. So, for what I wrote down in my... No, I didn't. So,
Book club.
what I wrote down in my little book at the end of the last session was the couple was Hideyoshi and Ava. I was correct. I was very much correct on that front. Did I think it would be only one of them? Because they said, like, it would, like, separate them or something like that? Yes. So, Ava can't be the head, meaning the head is either Kinzo or Natsuhi. Maybe Genji, because he's the head of the servants. But I would say that it is most likely Natsuhi. Chest, still think it's probably Jessica. Knee is maybe Kumasawa, if we're really pushing it. Stomach is Nanjo, Kinzo, or I think I wrote Natsuhi just because of the, like, what's it called?
Stomach issues?
Yeah, something like that. Then leg was Kumasawa or Nanjo. So Kumasawa has 1, 2, 3 instances of probably dying.
Oh no! I'm probably gonna die! Oh no! I say like I totally don't know what happens.
So my next guess is that the next person to die is probably gonna be Natsuhi or Genji. I really don't think Kinzo will reveal himself until much later. So
okay.
I don't know. Maybe. Unless the chest is Natsuhi, because that's like, she's got the heart of a what's it called? Of a thing.
Of an Ushinomiya?
Of an Ishirimiya, yeah. So head is currently, my leading theory is Natsuhi, but I think it could equally be Genji or Kinzo as well. Mainly because they started focusing a lot on Genji just then.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, it makes the most sense that it's either Kinzo, Natsuhi, or Genji. Because Kinzo is the head of the household. Natsuhi is currently taking up that spot and is currently having headaches constantly. And Genji is the head of the servants. So it really could be any three of them. Chest, by the fact that they said asthma, I think it might be Jessica, but I could be wrong.
I'll let you keep going.
Huh?
When you're ready, I'll let you keep going.
Yeah. And what's it called? I think either Jessica or George will die. That is my guess. I still think that Kanon, Battler, and Maria will survive. I just think Jessica or George is gonna die.
Okay, Uber.
At any rate, we'll lock this room and leave everything as it is until the police come. No objections, I take it. Natsuhi announced as though she didn't care whether they agreed or not. If anyone had the right to object, it would have been George, but he looked as though he'd shed enough tears. George nodded slyly, facing away from the others, and when he stood up, everyone else agreed too. Natsuhi still hadn't opened that western envelope of the family head that she'd picked up, but now they'd decided to leave this room, she decided to unseal it in the parlor where everyone could watch. As soon as they walked out into the hallway to head back to the parlor, some of them immediately felt something out of place, or maybe sensed something strange. Is it Kinzo? Ew? Stinks? Did you notice a too, Maria? Seriously, what's that smell? It's awful. When everyone sniffed the air, they did notice a horrible burnt smell drifting through the hallway that none of them had smelled until then.
I will go quickly check the kitchen! I'm sure I turned the flame off.
After noticing a burnt smell, it was natural for Kumasawa, who had been using the burner in the kitchen, suspected that her own slip-up had caused it. Kumasawa hastily dashed away. Kanon, go with Kumasawa. Do not let... Yes. After nodding at... Oh my god, my game is like glitching really bad. After nodding at Genji's orders, Kanon followed after her. He wasn't running, but as he followed her, he tried to search for the cause of the smell in the other's direction as well. Ew? Stinks. Ew. It's truly a stench that makes the nose wrinkle. However, that doesn't mean we can just open the window for ventilation. Natsuhi was reluctant to open the windows in a situation where self-defense is so important. Let us run the fan. I do not believe there will be any need to open the windows. George Anaki, is it okay if I talk to you? If it's about finding the culprit, then I have no problems. It seemed that George had managed to climb out of the abyss of sorrow. All that filled in his chest now was the quiet flame of hatred towards the culprit who had stolen the lives of the ones that he had loved and his beloved parents. The chain for the room was set. From what I could tell by looking at it, I'm positive that it couldn't be opened from the outside. In other words, this was a perfect closed room. That does seem to be the case. In the case of the Rose Garden storehouse, they might have sneaked the shutter's key out of the servant room, or maybe they have a duplicate key. I can imagine many ways that they could have done it. But this chain is different. Among generally used locking techniques, a chain is the simplest one to create a closed room with. Only a chain will block everyone from coming in from the outside as long as it isn't physically broken. So does this mean that the culprit couldn't have gone in or out through the door? That's interesting. A few hours ago, I seem to remember everyone making a fuss over how to enter a room without using the door. Back then, we were all losing our cool, wondering how grandfather had disappeared from his room. The receipt Aunt Ava stuck in the door on a whim proved that the door had remained sealed. And since Aunt Natsuhi was the only person to enter or exit during that time, she was under suspicion. Aunt Ava proposed theory about how Aunt Natsuhi might have thrown grandfather out of the window and left by the door herself. But this door is much simpler. It was sealed from the inside by the door chain. The window had also been locked from the inside, and the bodies had been inside the room. This time, it really had been, without exaggeration, a true closed room. That's right. If you include grandfather's disappearance, we have 3 cases occurred. All 3 times, the doors have been a point of interest. The first was the shutter. There was a key in the servant room, and if we assume someone knew about it, this really can't be called a closed room. The next was the door sealed by the receipt. However, Aunt Natsuhi had entered that room, so if grandfather left through the window or been thrown out, she would have been able to lock the window before escaping. Or maybe, like my theory, grandfather could have hidden until the receipt was gone and left the room later. Basically, this door can be defeated with a handful of desperate tricks. In that sense, you really can't call this one a closed room either. And now, we have the door sealed with a door chain. Finally, we have to give up. The window, the door, everything had been locked. It was a perfect closed room. The first hadn't been a closed room because everyone could be suspected. The second hadn't been a closed room because Aunt Natsuhi could have been suspected. But this time, no one can be suspected. This was a perfect closed room because the door chain formed a seal that blocked everyone equally well. In that case, did the culprit carry out the crime without entering the room? With some sort of method from the other room outside the room? Good point. Even though the chain makes it impossible to open wide enough for a person to fit through, you can open it a small crack. Crack? Did the culprit knock on the door to make them peer out, or before attacking them? Wait, am I missing something? Yeah, you are. If Aunt Eva's body had been lying right next to the door, then it might have been possible. But she was on the bed at the back of the room, and Uncle Hideyoshi was even in the bathroom. Looking from the crack in the door, you couldn't even see them if you could, and you couldn't even reach them with your hands either. Damn it, it's all useless. I don't have a clue. Something was tugging softly at my sleeve. It was Maria. Hello? Satisfied? What do you mean, satisfied? Battler, since you didn't want to suspect any of your relatives, you made a wish, saying you wanted the culprit to be Beatrice, right? Well, Beatrice granted that wish. Just as you asked, she did something that was completely impossible for a human to make you believe in the witch. And now you're complaining? How selfish. Ow! I tapped Maria, who was laughing unpleasantly, on the head with my fist. Sure, thanks for granting that wish. That just now was to thank you and also to teach you to stop laughing when it's inappropriate. More importantly, tell me, there was another mysterious scribble on the door to Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Was that another magic circle? That one had a really memorable characteristic design. So, I hope you at least know what it was. Ouch! I don't know, which is why I'm letting you take the credit. Quit whining and explain. You sure are violent, Battler. I won't tell you if you're too mean. Get it? Ouch! Ew, I'll say it. Stop hitting me! That's the first magic circle is of the moon. Oh, that's the first magic circle of the moon. What does it mean? What is this magic circle's effect? What does the Hebrew writing mean? The words are from the Old Testament, Psalms 107, verse 16. For he has broken the gates of brass and cut through the bars of iron. This magic circle has 2 effects. First, I can open the door regardless of which method has been used to lock it. That sure is convenient. So you're saying they're trying to make it look like they're a witch because this room has a closed door that can't be opened without relying on magic. And the other effect? When you're blocked by unopenable doors in all directions, it opens a door. By using it in a difficult situation, it gives you a solution that you hadn't even thought of until then. Generally speaking, if you receive the powers of observation and discernment, inspiration and intuition. Beatrice is trying to provoke you because there's no way lowly humans like Battler could figure out how this door was opened. Ouch! Okay, I'm gonna pause for a sec. Oh, whoops. Returning, I did skip a line by accident. Ouch, kihi. Oh no, I didn't. Okay, good work. So shut up. Sounds great. I'll accept the challenge from this witch. Maria-chan, things like witches and demons don't exist in this world. Someone killed father and mother. I don't know whether that was someone I know or not, but either way, it was definitely a human. Yeah, but how? How did they reach those two through the crack in the door? It couldn't have been more than 10 centimeters wide. An American accent, and she's using centimeters. I've really fucked up this character. At any rate, I can hardly stand this stench. What in the world could it be? Kanon and Kumasawa, who had gone on ahead, realized the smell wasn't coming from the kitchen even before they arrived there. That was because they noticed the even thicker wave of stench rising up from the stairs leading to the basement, which they had passed on their way to the kitchen. The boiler room.
I wonder if there's something wrong in the boiler again.
Those stairs led to the underground boiler room. The mansion's boiler was in old and in poor condition. Both of them had witnessed problems with the boiler on several occasions, but they never smelled the boiler belching out a scent like this before. Slam. What? That was so loud! The thing that they heard from the basement was definitely the sound of a door closing. Kumasawa had phrased it. Oh, that was
Stealing my lines again.
They
That's
said it at the
okay,
same
we'll
time, don't
continue.
worry. Go on. Go on.
Oh, what was that sound?
Kumasawa had phrased it as a question, but she already knew that it couldn't be anything else. Kumasawa was so surprised at the sound that her knees gave way yet again and she cowered. After all, at that very moment, no one could have been in the boiler room. Just a few seconds ago, everyone had been crowded together around Ava and Hideyoshi's room. So who had caused the sound of the door closing just now? Kinzo, probably.
Kanon-san!
Snacking. After taking a second to sort out the situation, Kanon ran down towards the basement. Since they'd heard the sound of a door closing just now, there was no sign of anyone coming up the stairs. The person who closed the door had to be inside the boiler room now. If the boiler room had been a dead end, Kanon wouldn't have rushed so hastily. But Kanon was a servant, so he knew. There was 2 entrances to the boiler room, one that opened to the mansion and one that opened to the courtyard. If he didn't catch them now, they might slip away. Kumasawa reached the same conclusion long after Kanon did, but she couldn't let him go alone. If the thing in the boiler room was the culprit, an opponent who had easily killed 6 adults in the first murder, then no matter how Kanon confronted them, he wouldn't be a match. Of course, with this argument, even if Kumasawa joined in, it wouldn't change anything. At this rate, after a delay, Kumasawa decided she mustn't let Kanon go alone as she rushed down the stairs. At that time, Kanon was already in the boiler room. The boiler room's characteristic, I'm having such a hard time with this word. Damp heat tormented him. It had always been very unpleasant, smelly and hot place, but on top of that, the room was full of that horrible stench, which made Kanon feel like he was going to be sick. There was no doubt this room was the source. In that case, Kanon should have been searching for where the smell was coming from. However, Kanon could not stop gazing straight forward as he grabbed the hatchet from a tool shelf off the side of the door. He hadn't stretched out his hand because he wanted a hatchet. He wanted to grab a weapon, any weapon. Why? Kanon gazed into the darkness where the naked light bulb couldn't pierce. He answered. In roulette, you bet on a number or the colors red or black, vying for a payoff. However, low risk bets like black and red offer a similarly low payoff. The words cutting from Kamon's mouth were swallowed up by the darkness. The darkness suddenly started to swirl, glittering. Ooh, Beatrice.
Ooh, Beatrice. Beatrice.
Oh, it was such a fantastical scene. Golden, sparkling butterflies that hid in the shadows all over the boiler room. They flapped their wings, twinkling beautifully, gathered in the darkness, disappearing. Kanon continued speaking, directing his words at the darkness as it swallowed the butterflies up. But the butterfly gathered in the darkness. They they would certainly laugh. But Kanon continued to speak without faltering in the slightest. However, if you bet on something with a lower probability, your payoff increases proportional to the risk. The master called succeeding despite an astronomical risk a miracle, and called the astronomical payoff gained as the result magic. I have no interest in what kind of magic you and the master were seeking when you spun that roulette, but you forgot something. You forgot that in roulette there's a pocket that neither black nor red. Roulette has a special pocket called 0, which means that the house takes everything in certain variants of the game, which means that of all the coins to bet on, the table will be swept up just as though everyone would forfeit. I set my heart just on one thing. I decided that if Shannon were to be killed and I was to be left alive, I'd sacrifice this life of mine and bring this roulette of yours to ruin. This isn't one of the master's rules, and it certainly isn't one of yours. I made this rule myself. I am not furniture anymore. Yes, Kanon. I'm
Yes,
the 0
king.
on your roulette. Kanon's face twisted with humiliation. It was clear that his defiance against his own weaknesses was being ridiculed somehow. Kanon's brow creased even further. A fierce expression that he'd never shown to anyone appeared on his face. The hand grasping at his hatchet was shaking. His sweat became drops which slid downwards. It was clear that the emotion causing Kanon's hand to shake wasn't just anger. However, Kanon suppressed that emotion. I won't let your words lead me astray again. This is where the demon's roulette ends. Wait another 1,000 years in hell for your next summoner, Beatrice! Kanon raised the hatchet and tried to dive down into the darkness. The darkness definitely sneered. It sneered at the courage, if it were vulgar, lazy, futile, and meaningless. Oh, what the fuck? A little giggle.
Bitch, laughing noise!
Kanon, his hatchet still held aloft, couldn't take another step after that. With a clang, the hatchet that he'd been grasping fell and rolled onto the floor. Following that was a pair of thuds. Kanon's knees hit left, then right. His hands, which looked like they'd been trying to catch the sky now that the hatchet had been dropped, gradually lowered, landing on his chest. Then another hand did the same. No! Right there was the handle with the demonic design engraved in it. As Kanon looked down at his chest, the same type of weapon that had been stabbed into Eva Hideyoshi's forehead was... Kanon curled up in anguish, fresh blood dripping from the corner of his mouth. It was makeup too extreme for Kanon's white skin. Around this scene, the glittering gold butterflies dance around through the darkness, mesmerizing. It was beautiful, beautiful dance, a funeral march of tribute, ridicule, and contempt for a single boy's self-sacrifice. Kanon had already prepared for his own death, but although he could do nothing but accept the death that he'd received, he attempted one last measure of resistance. He grasped the handle of the weapon, sticking into his chest with both hands. Do not pull that out! And gritting his teeth with an acute, unearthly pain, he pulled it out. Bro, you're gonna die faster! For only a moment, a bright red spray gushed out. It made an unpleasant bloop sound. It was probably resembled the sound of Kanon's soul as it was sucked into the swamp of the dead. screamed at the incomprehensible sight in front of her. Kanon was lying in a pool of blood. Kumasawa's heart was a complete mess. What a horrible fate. He would have been killed if I had been. He wouldn't have been killed if I was with him.
Oh, am I narrating this?
I guess so.
Ah, what a horrible fate. He wouldn't have been killed if I'd been with him. Oh, what incredible luck. If I had been with him, I might have been killed too.
Well, that throws my theories out of the water. Oh shit, let's save. This is probably a good time to save.
Good time to save. Oh, it doesn't look like he's dead on the thing yet, though. His thing hasn't been turned red.
I mean, Nanjo could help save him. He only just got stabbed.
Oh yeah, no, that's true.
As she screamed, her expression was filled with complete confusion as all the muscles in her face were pulled up, almost as though she was smiling while crying, but no one could have made fun of an expression like this. What is it, Kumasawa? Etsumi Kumasawa! The first one to dash in was Natsuhiro holding the rifle. Battler and Genji dashed in after. Normally they would probably have started discussing the origin of that violent stench filling the boiler room. But after they saw Kanon, who was lying on the ground as if he were drowning in an ocean of his own blood, the stench wasn't important anymore. Kanon! Answer me! Genji, bring Dr. Nanjo in here. Natsu realized that even though Kanon was on the verge of death, he was still conscious, so she sent Genji to get to the doctor. Natsu, holding the rifle aloft, faced the darkness in the center of the boiler room and shouted, "Who is hiding over there? Come out quietly! If you don't come out from there, I will shoot without mercy. We need a light. Aunt Natsuhi, light them up." Battler, thinking quickly, took a large flashlight from the tool shelf alongside the door and used it to cut through the darkness that Natsuhi was glaring into. But the light only shone on a mechanical-looking pipe and door. The door had been left open a small crack, and it was obvious someone had left through there in a hurry. Aunt Natsuhi, where does that door go? Genji, where does that door lead to? The courtyard. Like hell I'll let you get away, damn bastard! Battler let out a war cry as he slammed into the door. Cool air from outside suddenly rushed in. There was some thin, rough stairs leading up. Battler ran out them shouting, "Wait, Battler-kun, it's dangerous to be on your own right now." Natsuhi was also rushing up the stairs, chasing after Battler. They were in the courtyard. The courtyard of the mansion had been built strictly for lighting purposes, so it wasn't a very elegant place. But it was surrounded by all sides. The air was calm, completely undisturbed, even though they could hear the sound of strong winds. There was only a gentle, sorrowful rain. As he ran through the cold, scattered raindrops, dashing up the stairs and into the courtyard, Battler looked in every direction. Of course, the odds of him finding a suspicious silhouette just standing around nonchalantly were pretty much zero. Battler spun, looking around. He turned again and again. He kept spinning until he almost lost his sense of direction. He prayed that he would see the culprit somewhere in the scenery, but there was no chance. All he saw as he spun around was more and more of the mansion's heartless walls and windows. Furthermore, there were two entrances into the mansion from the courtyard. Neither of them were locked. Because the courtyard couldn't be entered from the outside of the mansion, the doors had been built without locks. He didn't know which one they had left through. He had to give up. Battler pounded on the wall with his fist, swearing, "Battler-kun, you mustn't run ahead by yourself." Battler-kun? Battler pressed his forehead against the wall, which he scratched at with his fingernails until he cried, "Damn it, damn it, damn it! Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi, and now Kanon-kun? You killed a full 6 people, and that wasn't enough, so you had to kill 3 more. Are you kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me? Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi were always kind and fun, and I just met Kanon yesterday. I'm sure I would have gotten along with him just fine. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? You know when people die, they don't come back to life again, right? They aren't gonna quickly sprout up again like bamboo shoots. Why did you kill them? Why? Why? Ah! Battler was a boy who could understand the feelings of pain and regret in a person's heart. So when he cried, with all his strength, Natsu, who had always thought of Battler as a frank person, was a little surprised to find that he had a delicate side. And at the same time, she understood how easily hurt the heart of a young person could be, so she held him. "It's alright. I will definitely protect you, George-kun," Maria-chan, and Jessica. As a mother and a person and a representative of the Yoshiomiya family. Gah! Ah! Battler, after sobbing into Natsu's chest for a while, wiped his tears with a bitter smile, as though he had been like that the whole time, as he tried to appear as though he cried more than enough already. Anyways, let's go back for now. Protecting ourselves is a higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow, the boat will arrive. After that, protecting ourselves is the higher priority than finding the culprit. Tomorrow, the boat will arrive. After that, the police will come and everything should be brought to light. There's no way the culprits can escape this island, no matter how hard they struggle. That's right. When the police come, when the seagulls cry, the crime will be solved. Umineko, for some reason, Battler felt a slight sense of uneasiness, as if the seagulls would never cry again. That couldn't be true. When the typhoon passes, surely the lively seagulls will return to the harbour again. I returned to the boiler room along with Aunt Natsuhi and told everyone weakly that we hadn't found anything. We heard that Dr. Nanjo and George Anaki had carried Kanokun to the servant room. The servant room had a first aid kit and sink and could apparently function as a nurse's office. Kumasawa-san and Jessica had accompanied them. Stains from Kanokun's blood remained on the floor. Judging by the large amount of blood lost and the ruthless shape of the weapon that had fallen carelessly onto the ground, I figured that Dr. Nanjo's treatment would probably be end in vain. The weapon was doubtlessly the same type that had been struck in Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi's foreheads. But wait, isn't that demonic design on the handle a little different? It seemed to be some small differences in that part. Still, as far as their overall shape was concerned, the weapons were all of the same type. Though it had been brutal, we'd left the weapons struck into Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi to preserve the crime scene. So this is the first time we were able to have a perfect view of the entire weapon. As we expected, the weapon was not bladed like a knife, but shaped like an ice pick, or rather a thin stake. And it had a spiral-shaped pattern that sort of looks like a drill. It looked like something that might have been driven into the heart of human sacrifices in some demonic ritual. Including the handle, it was 25 centimeters long. God damn, that's a big freaking knife. Maybe not. I just picked up a ruler and went, actually, that's not really
I mean,
enough.
I think you've killed people with longer weapons before, Brooklyn.
What? I'm sorry, what do you mean?
I won't repeat myself.
No, please do, because why am I being accused of murder here?
I mean, everyone's accusing people of murder at this point.
So you thought you'd join in?
Join in. Let's join in. Let's join in, Brooklyn.
Oh, bro. Half of that was the stake-shaped part that was stained with red deep blood. The length of the bloodstained part made it clear just how deeply it must have penetrated into Kanonkun's chest. But why is Maria here? Maria! Why is a 9-year-old sitting here? But Aunt Natsuhi and the rest didn't even look at the weapon, but instead stood in front of the incinerator where the horrible stench was emanating from. They must have dragged out that thing which had been burning in the furnace. It was smouldering and kept sending out dense waves of that awfully unpleasant smell. Do not tell me that is Kinzo's body. Genji and Maria stared down at it. Aunt Natsu probably couldn't stand to look at it. She kept shaking her head back to it. Is it? I thought nothing could surprise me after everything that happened, but this... Ugh. I stood there for a while, moaning with the rising urge to vomit. The true source of that unearthly stench was a scorched corpse that had been cooking inside the incinerator. The clothes, the surface of the body, and the hair were all hideously burned. That grotesque corpse was in a state where not the face, nor the age, nor even the gender could be guessed at. But when I thought about it calmly, I realized that the corpse appearing at this time could only be one person. it was grandfather, who had disappeared that morning and whose whereabouts had been unknown. Okay, so from what I take it, I was correct about the head. The head is Kinzo.
Mhm.
The chest must be Kanon, because he just got fucking stabbed in the chest. I thought this was
Gouged
happening over
chest
several different
wound.
days.
Brooklyn, you know that Umineko only lasts 2 days, October 4th and 5th.
Actually, I did not know that.
Oh,
Because it
no.
said that many different twilights, so I'm like, okay. So,
I could see why you'd think that, actually. 'Cause,
yeah.
yeah,
I thought
like the
that
Twilight
maybe the
don't-
typhoon is like magically encircling the thing. And it's probably because I've read too much Junji Ito, and that's what kind of happens in Uzumaki, where the hurricanes keep encircling the town. So, so the head is Kinzo. I'm 100% correct on that. Even though I thought it could be Natsuhi or Genji, the head is clearly Kinzo. Chest is clearly Kanon. Because he got stabbed. Obviously, he, like, potentially could still live, but he just got stabbed. And he pulled out the fucking knife like an idiot. You keep the knife in your chest! Oh, bro. Stomach. Well, who do we have left? We have
the cousins, Natsuhi, and the 3 servants.
Natsuhi, Genji. Oh, we also have Nanjo. Nanjo and Kumasawa. So we don't have 3 servants. We have Genji, Nanjo, and Kumasawa.
Yeah.
So stomach, knee, and leg. I still can only assume that Kumasawa is the knee or the leg. Because she keeps bringing it up. Well then in that case it's kind of obvious that the, what's it called? That the cousins are the ones who survive. But, well, Battler does because he's Battler. Maria definitely does. Again, I can only see Jessica or George dying in my mind. But there's only like 3 Twilights left. But there was more deaths after the Twilights,
so hold
wasn't
on a second. Let me look up the epitaph again.
Because
Okay.
there was definitely stuff after it.
I can read the rest. Alright, so gouge the head and kill, gouge the chest, stomach, knee, leg. On the 9th twilight, all who survive shall... Oh, sorry. On the 9th twilight, the witch will revived and none shall be left alive. On the 10th twilight, at journey's end, you shall attain the power of the Golden Land's treasures once and for the last time. The witch shall praise the wise and bestow 4 treasures. One shall be all the gold from the Golden Land. One shall be the resurrection of all the dead souls. One shall be the resurrection of love that was lost. And one shall put the witch to sleep for all time.
So, Battler is clearly put the witch to sleep, because that is his goal. The love, I assume, would be George. What was the other 2? One was all the gold, and one was...
all the gold and the resurrection of all dead souls.
I don't know if Jessica falls under either of those, and I actually don't know if Maria does as well.
Well, that's like kind of after all the Twilights. So once they reach the Golden Land, and like those are like the treasures.
Yeah.
And then at the end is sleep peacefully, my beloved bitch Beatrice.
Okay. Well. Oh shit! What happened? Back.
Nandeska!
It was grandfather who had disappeared in the morning, whose whereabouts had been unknown. I believe this is most likely the master. I agree. That he would pass away in such a state, it's heart-rending. But is there any proof that this corpse really is grandfather? It's burnt so black you can't even tell what sex it is. Betela-kun, look at the feet. Aunt Natsuhi held her handkerchief over her mouth and her eyes pointed and told me to look at the burnt corpse's feet. Notice how there are 6 toes on each foot? Huh? Ah, you're right. Just as Genji had said that was Genji, whoops. There were 6 toes on each foot. Each individual toe had looked so normal in its line that I didn't even notice. The master was born with 6 toes on both of his feet. Consequently, the master was entrusted with the revival of the Shirmiya family. I have heard since long ago cases of polydactyl were common in the Shirmiya family. It's probably hereditary. Polydactyly literally means many fingers. Because of the little mistake by God when the person is born, one of their toes or fingers splits into 2 and the total number increases. But the big deal isn't usually made of polydactyly in the world at large. That's because it isn't a disease, just something people are born with. So while they are still babies, at about the time they turn 1 year old, they can be taken to a hospital and given surgery to make them normal. Even a child with polydactyly, can be treated before they become aware, so they might not even remember it themselves. By the way, it seems that there's no possibility for this to occur in 1 out of every 2,000 babies. So, even though it's not usually seen, it isn't rare at all. Speaking of which, I think Uncle Hideyoshi mentioned something to me a long time ago. Something about how even Toyotomi Hideyoshi, the man who unified Japan at the end of the Sengoku period, had 6 fingers on one hand. According to Aunt Natsuhi, among many of the Shirmiya family heads, the ones most praised for their wisdom all had polydactyly. Because of that, when grandfather was born, his relatives were all excited at the thought that he might become another wise leader. And when the leading relatives died in the Great Kanto earthquake, it was apparently argued that grandfather should be the one to restore the family because of his auspicious sign of his birth. If grandfather hadn't disliked his position at the head so much, this 6th toe probably would have been pretty lucky for him. Come to think of it, I've heard about some country where it's believed that people with polydactyly should be treated as gods and even revered. This is besides the point, but it's fairly common in mystery novels for a corpse to be burned to hide its identity. But I guess in grandfather's case, just toasting him wouldn't have been enough. And grandfather's body was not simply burnt. It was just like Aunt Ava's and Uncle Hideyoshi's, and the thing that had been stabbed into Kanonkun's chest. One of those demon's ice picks was stuck into his forehead. The head's ring is not on his finger. So the letter last night was telling the truth. Father would probably be horribly disappointed. Natsuhi-san let her head drop and closed her eyes tightly. This room had become a vital crime scene for us to hand over to the police. It was decided that we would leave grandfather's corpse here and lock the room, sealing it. It wasn't clear when grandfather's corpse started burning in the incinerator. Since, according to Genji, the strength of the flames hadn't been that strong, the body must have started burning a long time ago. So that stench could slowly creep out of the furnace to fill the room bit by bit, even eventually pouring out and climbing up the staircase. Putting aside whether he was rare or well done, grandfather had been brought out, killed, burned, and even though he had started out locked away in the closed room created by his auto lock. There's probably no doubting this. However, according to Genji-san, the boiler room is usually locked. The possibility that someone outside our group had snuck in and committed the crime was overwhelmingly high. And there was also a good chance this person was walking around with something like a master key. After all, the doors and windows throughout the mansion had all been checked. Despite that, the culprit was able to strut around the mansion freely. Does this crime confirm that a 19th person exists? There's still that contradiction since they're trying to tout their existence without ever showing themselves once. Bro! You just had someone spearing a knife into Kanon. It is so clear. Someone else is there. Oh my god. Along with Kiri-san's chessboard theory, I've been using the contradiction to deny the existence of a 19th person. Bro. Spitting
The
my
chessboard
mind
is a
into
globe now.
fucking chaos.
It just rotates around the sun. That's what the bloody chessboard is.
Flat Earth is real. We're on a chessboard. Oh, bro. The name of this episode is going to be something to do with a spinning chessboard. I swear to God.
Yeah.
Spinning the chessboard around once more. The very fact that this crime makes it perfectly obvious that a 19th person exists means that the existence of the 19th person is even less plausible. Oh my good lord. As long as that 19th person doesn't show themselves in front of us. If that culprit could get grandfather through the door sealed by the receipt, if they could kill Aunt Eva and Uncle Hideyoshi from the other side of the door by sealed by a chain, then they could possibly go so far as to create a fictional 19th person through strange tricks and devices. If we still want to believe that the culprit is among the 18, then the list of suspects has grown very short. The four of us kids, Aunt Natsuhi, Genji-san, Kumasawa-chan, and Dr. Anjo. One of these people has to be the culprit. Wait, we can't be sure of that. Just a second ago, we started doubting whether the corpse was actually grandfather's, right? Maybe we can think of the other bodies as the same way. For example, the first 6 had their faces horribly smashed. Some of the bodies had kept enough of their faces for us to confirm who they were, but the old bastard, for example, lost his entire face, though the whole thing had been neatly peeled off. We only figured out which body was which by their clothes and surroundings. Did the culprit prepare a fake body beforehand and alter it to make it look like they died, even though they were actually hiding somewhere after committing the crime? It may sound ridiculous, but it wouldn't even be an impossible trick to pull off. It's too early to give in to this 19th person. No, this witch. It's secretly Aunt Rosa. Marie-chan, you mustn't stare so fixedly anymore. Come on, Betsy-kun. Do. I'm worried about Kanon's condition, and we mustn't remain in a place like this any longer than necessary. Let us return. Eva? Maria didn't go out with everyone else, but remained in the boiler room. The thing she was staring at so fixedly probably wasn't grandfather's body, but the demon's ice pick sticking out of his forehead. It probably was the sort of item that an enthusiast couldn't bear to ignore. I tapped on her head. Hey Maria, what's Beatrice after? Is it all of our lives? Beatrice will revive very soon. At that time, none shall be left alive. How can you laugh at something like that? Do you think you're the only one who's safe? Why don't you feel like you're in danger? Why aren't you scared? Beatrice made a promise. She said she's gonna take me to the Golden Land. It's a wonderful place where you go have no obligations, everyone's always together, and everyone is always nice to everyone else. I'm looking forward to it. That time will come very soon now. Kihihi. Oh. Just what kind of person is Maria? Oh.
Oh, Maria.
Just gonna... Hold on. Thumbnail photo. To me when Battler spins the fucking... me when Battler spins the chessboard around. I only know what Maria was like 6 years ago when she was 3. She was once pure and obedient, a good kid. This new Maria 6 years later, the Maria that I knew, didn't seem to fit together. Just who is she? This witch who calls herself Maria. To Maria who obstinately believes in a witch. Yeah, obstinately. This series of unsolvable crimes is proof that the witch actually exists. Every time something occurs that would be difficult for a human, it becomes a little harder for the rest of us to not believe in Beatrice. This must be an intense pleasure for Maria to see her relatives, who firmly once denied the witch's existence, start acknowledging that the witch's existence one by one. Is that why she's in high spirits? Maria, let me ask one more thing. You'll probably answer the same anyway, but I'll ask once more. Iwe? Yesterday, you were given a letter in the rose garden. Who gave it to you? Iwe, like I said, Beatrice. Battler still doesn't believe. Iwe. Maria only repeated what she had already said. Maria had met with the 19th person, the witch. Was that 19th person really a 19th person, or one of the 18 just to get her to say that? All that's certain is that Maria has been with the rest of us constantly, has always had an alibi, and hasn't done anything suspicious. She's simply overjoyed at being made Beatrice's messenger, and certainly isn't the 19th person. Supposedly. That's right. I wonder what's written in the letter picked up by Aunt Ava and Uncle Hideyoshi's room. Aunt Nutty should still have it with her. Crack. Yes! Yes! I got... Oh! Big clock.
Oh. 8 p.m. Brooklyn, 8 p.m.
Okay. Question is, should we continue? It's only been an hour and a half, which is a lot quicker relatively.
Were you planning to have dinner soon, or?
Not really, but
maybe we continue until the next crack, or until we think it. Oh, Kanon's dead.
Kanon's dead. So is Kinzel.
Until we think it's appropriate.
Yeah, I think so. I'm very invested in this now, like in this section.
I mean, we can't. I mean, you said we aren't gonna play next week, so let's make the most of it. This week.
Okay, what I'll do.
What I might do.
Okay, so I'm gonna end this episode here. Just because then we can like consistently have, in between every crack. I think that's how I'm gonna set my episodes for now. Let's try and. Sorry, I'll end this here. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next episode. Bye.